All right, welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most anticipated events on the Entropia universe calendar, Merry Mayhem 2025. We're going to break down the official announcement piece by piece, look at the prizes, the structure, and then, most importantly, we're going to get into what you, the players, are actually saying about it.
So let's start with the big hook from the developers, Mindark. They're positioning this as the major can't-miss event of the year. It runs for over a month, and, it's really designed to have something for everybody. Okay, first things first, let's get these dates on your calendar. The whole thing kicks off December 10th and wraps up on January 15th. But, and this is crucial, pay really close attention to that January 23rd deadline. That is your absolute last day to submit your free-for-all stars if you want to be in the running for the big prizes. The final results? We'll see those on February 6th. So here's our game plan for today. We'll start with the 30,000-foot view, then we'll break down the two main ways you can play, the Annihilation missions versus the high-stakes FFA. After that, we'll look at the Annihilation grind, the FFA gamble, and finally, we'll get into the community's reaction. So what is Merry Mayhem, really? At its heart, it's this huge, multi-week hunting event that takes place on planet Calypso. And it's basically split right down the middle into two main activities, each with its own set of rules and rewards. The whole event really revolves around these core features. You've got Annihilation for that steady progression, and the free-for-all for that intense competition. While you're out there hunting, you'll find special loot like strongboxes and Mayhem tokens, which you can then trade for exclusive gear. They've even got a special mission just to get newcomers into the action. And this brings us to the first major choice you're going to have to make. Are you in this for the long-haul grind of Annihilation, or are you going to go for broke and chase the glory in the free-for-all? And this slide, right here, lays out the fundamental difference. Annihilation is all about your personal journey. You're hitting point milestones, unlocking rewards. It's you against the game. The free-for-all, or FFA, is a whole other beast. That's a leaderboard competition. It's you against every other player, ranked by the value of the tokens you submit. So personal progress versus public showdown. All right, let's dig into the Annihilation missions first. This is probably where a ton of players are going to be spending their time. It's the more structured, progression-focused side of Merry Mayhem. Now, the very first thing you need to get is that your initial choice here is a big deal. You have to pick one of 4 mission tracks: bronze, silver, gold, or redolite. And once you choose, you're locked in for the entire event. You can't back out, you can't switch, so you really have to think about how much you're going to play before you commit. Okay, now here's a little change that's got some people talking. Instead of seeing exact numbers for your points, you're just going to see a progress bar. The developers say it's because the scoring is really complex, but you can see how this creates a bit of a fog, right? You never know exactly how close you are to that next reward. And the rewards, they scale up big time. Just look at the difference between the bronze and Redula tiers. Finishing just the first stage of Redulite gets you almost 20 times more Mayhem tokens than the first stage of bronze. It really drives home how much that initial choice matters. All right, let's shift gears over to the other side of the coin, the more cutthroat part of the event, the free-for-all. This is where the truly insane prizes are, and it's a completely different kind of challenge. The entire FFA competition boils down to these little things. FFA Mayhem stars. They drop from mobs in special FFA zones, and your final rank depends on the total value of the stars you turn in. But here's the absolute most critical detail. These stars are tradable. And this is why that tradable mechanic is such a game changer. Just look at these prizes. First place gets a land area, an LA. That's a piece of virtual real estate that can literally generate real-world income. We're talking about one of the most valuable assets in the entire game, which just cranks the stakes for the FFA up to 11. Which, of course, leads directly to this question from player Detritus 2.0. Because the stars are tradable, a player doesn't have to hunt them at all. They could, in theory, just buy them from other players. And that has a lot of people wondering, is the FFA a test of skill and luck, or is it just a test of who has the biggest bank account? So with all the rules laid out, let's turn our attention to the player base. And as you can probably guess, with an event this big, the community reaction is, well, it's a mix of genuine excitement and some pretty deep skepticism. On the positive side, you've got players like Rocket192 who are absolutely thrilled. They're looking at the return of the classic Annihilation format and these huge FFA prizes and seeing it as proof that the devs are actually listening, that they're delivering what the community has been asking for. But then you have the complete opposite take, voiced here by player Image Z. This point of view sees that Land Area Prize not as a reward for the players, but as a clever way for Mindark to sell off an asset for a massive price through a competition. They're calling it a cash grab. And these two perspectives really get to the whole debate. The hopeful camp is pumped about the classic gameplay and the big-ticket rewards. The skeptical camp, though, they're worried about things like useless tokens from past events, the real cost-to-reward ratio, and the fairness of a competition where the top prize can essentially be bought. And underneath all the opinions are just a lot of practical, unanswered questions. People are trying to figure out the potential cost, the cycle for each Annihilation tier. They're asking how many LA fragments actually make a full LA. And a big one, will the token vendors even have anything good to buy this time? There's a real hunger for more transparency here. This simple question from player Caesar123 just cuts right through all of it, doesn't it? It perfectly sums up the community's uncertainty. With memories of empty token vendors and big questions about the real cost of competing, a lot of players are asking themselves, is all this grind, all this gamble, actually going to be worth it? So when you boil it all down, Merry Mayhem 2025 is really defined by this tension. On one hand, you have a classic event format that players love, with some of the biggest prizes the game has ever seen. But on the other hand, you have these very real concerns from the community about fairness, about transparency, and about whether the rewards are as valuable as they look on paper. And that leaves us with the ultimate question hanging over this whole event. You've got two paths, the slow and steady grind of Annihilation, or the high-risk, high-reward gamble of the FFA. But as everyone gets ready to jump in, they have to be wondering, which path leads to a genuinely rewarding experience, and which one is just the most expensive? The answer, I guess, will unfold over the next few weeks. Thanks for tuning in.